If you're watching this video today, there's a good chance you're interested in the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado, and maybe considering what are some of the biggest pros or positive aspects of the city versus maybe some things that aren't that great. Well, you're in luck because today, we got a brand new episode of Living in Denver where I'm gonna be talking exactly about that. And the biggest topic and most exciting news to share with you, just this past week, the city of Denver announced that the brand new location for the Denver Broncos stadium is officially announced. I'm gonna share with you guys in this video where it's located. And as a 42-year Colorado and Denver native, I'm really excited to share my personal opinion on where this location is and what to expect in the future. Really looking forward to this episode. Stay tuned. All right, so as I said, today's gonna be all about some reasons why Denver is an awesome place to live, as well as a few things that maybe you're not thinking about that could be enough to reconsider Denver as your top spot. Before we get started though, my name is Adam Lang. I'm a licensed realtor here in Denver, Colorado, 42-year Colorado native, and more importantly, just somebody that could be your resource, somebody to help you with anything you might need when it comes to questions or just suggestions about what it's like living here in Denver, Colorado. Enough about that though, let's go ahead and get started. I just want to jump right into the number one reason why I really wanted to make this video today. And that's the first pro, or real big positive of why Denver is an awesome place to live. And that's the investment that's happening right now into the city. And as I alluded to in my intro, the Denver Broncos just announced this past week that they finally have a new location for the Denver Broncos football stadium. So this new location for the stadium is going to be in Barnham Yard. And this is an area that, as I've grown up here, have honestly never even really knew it existed other than just the location of where it is. But, you know, that really doesn't have right now much going for it when it comes to reputation or just other amenities and things to do in this Barnham Yard neighborhood. Barnham Yard is just slightly to the south of where the current stadium is located, and I am really glad that they chose this location. You know, when they were first throwing around different ideas for where the stadium might be, they were also talking about a lot of areas north, really close to the Gaylord Hotel, which is just basically right at the Denver International Airport. And one of the reasons why I did not like that area as much is just because it's so far away from everything else that Denver offers. You know, anybody that currently lives in downtown Denver or any of the surrounding neighborhoods, I used to live in Sloan Lake, which is just slightly to the west of downtown Denver. In fact, the Denver Broncos current stadium is only about a 5-minute walk from my house. And I think so many other people in Denver love that about the stadium, having a really good walkability feature and having it benefit all the other businesses, restaurants, bars, just all of that kind of stuff around the stadium. The good news is where they chose to put it here in Barnham Yard, it's still very close, so I think there's going to be a lot of the same traffic, same pull that exists currently with where it is now with this new stadium. But the biggest, I think, exciting aspect of this is they have announced it's going to be a retractable dome on the stadium. And what that means is, it's kind of a good and bad to this. The good is that usually means that we'll now be a contender to have the Super Bowl here sometime in the future. So how cool would that be to finally have a Super Bowl here in Denver, Colorado? I will though push back and say the one negative I think of having a dome on the stadium is, you know, Denver Broncos, you know, the fans as well as the players, we're used to the cold, harsh weather that we have here in the winter months in Colorado. And I think in some ways that could be an advantage, especially when we're playing some of our division teams like San Diego or the Los Angeles Chargers. You know, they're not used to that as much. So I think that does give an upper hand to the home team, which unfortunately will no longer really play as much of a factor once this new stadium gets built. But really excited though just to share that news with you guys, and this is just a long-winded way of explaining one reason why I think this is such a great positive of living in Denver is all of this investment back into the community. One last thing about the Denver Broncos stadium that I also think is really cool. So as you may or may not know, the Broncos are owned by the Penner Walton family, so the family that owns Walmart. As you can imagine, very wealthy. In fact, we're the wealthiest ownership of any team in the entire country. And with that, one benefit is that actually they're paying for the stadium completely on their own. They're not asking for anything from the city of Denver. You know, on average, a lot of the other big stadiums that have recently been built around the country, there's about a $700 to $800 million chip in that the city itself has to put in to help pay for the stadium. We're not doing that here. So it's just nice to know that when this new stadium is built, it's not going to be affecting the pocketbooks of any Denver residents in that surrounding area. So really cool to see. But before we move on, just want to kind of talk a little bit more about why I'm bringing up this first pro, or this first great reason why Denver's awesome, and this investment back into the city. All of these other projects are going on outside of the stadium. There's also some really, really good improvements with the 16th Street Mall. That's the area right in downtown Denver that, as I was a kid growing up here 25, 30 years ago, this was a very vibrant part of Denver and really exciting, fun places to go down and spend New Year's Eve, or just go down on a Friday afternoon and walk around. We used to have a Hard Rock Cafe there that I really liked going to. Well, kind of in the last 10 to 15 years, the downtown area just became a joke. It became a ghost town. A lot of the businesses, the skyscrapers with all these offices, the vacancy rate went through the roof, and it just really became a kind of ghost town, just an area that was really in shambles. A lot of homelessness, a lot of trash, a lot of crime, just a lot of stuff that was not very impressive or something to really be excited to talk about. But they're finally turning a corner, and I think it's really finally on its way up and improving. So 16th Street Mall will be another example, though, of just how the city is reinvesting into some of these large projects. And then the last one that I'll leave you with, and I'll do another video on this one because it's also so exciting, but it's the area just by the Ball Arena, which is where the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche play. That stadium is actually also doing a massive redevelopment where they're taking over where Six Flags Elitch Gardens currently is. And there's going to be a ton more to do in that area when it comes to not only housing, but also some really good restaurants and bars and a walkable type park slash business environment where you're going to have a blend of kind of everything going on. Just an area that a lot of people will want to just hang out and congregate in, especially before some of these games. So just a lot going on when it comes to reinvestment into the Denver city. And that's a big reason for me why I chose this as the first thing I wanted to share with you. It's very good to see this kind of stuff when considering places to live, just knowing that the trajectory is going on the way up and it's not an area that's in decline. Okay, so now I want to talk about the first con, or maybe reason why Denver might not be the best spot for you. And I wanted to put the first one here for you guys today on the topic of what's really talked about probably more than anything else in Denver right now, and that's this word affordability. So affordability is tough anywhere in the nation, in my opinion, right now. We've got a lot of inflation going on. We've got just a very expensive time to be alive. And with AI and a lot of technology things that are, happening currently, but also expected to even more drastically change the scope of how people work and just interact in the job force. When all of this stuff is going on, I think that's all kind of negatively affecting Denver, just to the standpoint of it being a very unaffordable place to live in a very expensive city. In fact, the disparity right now between the average household income and the average sales price of real estate for single-family homes, that is such a dramatic difference when you compare it to other states that are a little bit more popular right now to move to. When you look at states like, for example, Texas, you have a lot more balance there where, the average household income might be $125,000 and, the median or the average sales price of a house might be in the $450 to $500 range, where there's not as big of a difference. Out here in Denver, it's just such a big gap right now. So just to kind of take this a step further, right now, the median household income in Denver is just over $90,000. In fact, it's $91,681 to be exact. Now, when you compare that to the median sales price of houses right now in the $650,000 range, as you can see, that is a massive difference and makes affordability for homes to purchase quite difficult. So I'm just gonna have that be my first and main point that I wanted to get across today, as not only what's causing a lot of people frustration when it comes to buying a home right now, but also it's limiting the amount of people even coming to Denver. If you guys are familiar at all, and I'm sure you are, with U-Haul, one of the largest companies in the country for helping people move to different places around the country, they actually have what's known as their moving index. And this past report that they came out with, they actually put Denver all the way down from being in the top 10, all the way down to number 40 for states that people currently are relocating to. And this is just a massive, massive shift, and I think a very simple metric or a simple statistic to share with you just to really hit this point home. So what this is really telling us is that, the reason that it went from number 10 all the way to number 40, so it went from the top 20% in the entire country for where people were moving, all the way down to the bottom 20%. And a lot of it has to do with this affordability. I would also say, though, that one thing that is, I think, dramatically shifting right now in the world is all this stuff going on with AI, artificial intelligence, and more specifically, how that's going to change the way people work moving forward. So, no crystal ball here, but I imagine in the next few years, there will be even more people that are really choosing where they want to live and not choosing based off of where the job is located, but just choosing in general, what provides the best lifestyle. And since Denver does have such a great lifestyle with that balance of an outdoor, active, healthy lifestyle with all the great urban improvements that are happening with music and restaurants and all that good stuff, it's just, I think, a reason to expect that more and more people will start to choose Denver regardless of the affordability aspect. There's still enough people out there that can afford to kind of live anywhere they want. They're going to be choosing places like Denver just because of the lifestyle, and more people are going to have that flexibility to kind of choose to live wherever just because of technology and this less and less people needing to work in a physical office space. All right, so with that being said, let's talk about something more positive. Let's talk about the second reason I want to share with you today on why Denver can still be a phenomenal place to consider moving to. And that's going to be how in the Denver area, there's more and more neighborhoods that are creating these micro scenes. And I want to use that term today for this point, micro scenes. And what I mean by a micro scene is these are just areas that have their own little social scene. They've got restaurants, bars, locally owned and operated businesses, and all of this is in a walkable area to a specific neighborhood. And this is something that did not exist nearly as much when I was growing up here, 20, 25 years ago, getting out of high school and into the college years. And if we wanted to go out to a restaurant, we pretty much would have to drive just to that place. Want to go to a bar, probably have to drive somewhere else or take a taxi somewhere else, and had to kind of deal with that shuffle. Nowadays, I think there's so much more demand for living in places that have walkability, where you literally can go from your house, whether it be walking or maybe just jumping on your bike or your skateboard, maybe renting one of those little Lyft or Lime scooters, and just within a few minutes being able to have some of these neighborhood local spots to check out. I want to share with you guys really quick 4 of my top spots that have this and do this phenomenally well. So these are newer areas, but also some that have been established and around for a while, but are just getting that much better than they used to be. And I want to make sure if you guys do ever come out here that you check these ones out. Oh, and really quick, if you guys do want to come out here, I'll put the info down below. We'd love to connect with you guys. Again, I'm just trying to connect with as many people as I can and help provide value in any way possible. So I would love just to share a few other ideas with you, as well as my brand new Locals Guide to Denver. I'll put the link down below so you can grab a free copy of that. I share over 20 of my favorite spots in and around the Denver area. So get a free copy. So these 4 areas that I promised to share with you, just really quick, just want to kind of run through these just at a high level. Number 1 is going to be Pearl Street, also known as Platt Park. This is really close to Wash Park, one of the most expensive and really in-demand neighborhoods in all of Denver. It's an awesome part of Denver, Wash Park is, but this area, Platt Park, which is just really close, just slightly west of there, another awesome spot to check out. And the reason I want to include it is with their downtown little area, some of the best farmers markets in the summer. And also, if you guys like Asian food, it has a few of the best sushi, as well as just Japanese restaurants that you can find anywhere in Denver. And they're all right here in that Platt Park area. So definitely check that out. That's number 1. Number 2, also want to share Lohi or Lower Highlands. And this is really close to where I used to live in that Sloan Lake area that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. That's really close to where the current Denver Broncos stadium is. Lower Highlands has always been a very trendy spot. Lots of awesome restaurants, including some Michelin star restaurants, some of the best patios, rooftops with views of the city skyline, walkable to the Broncos stadium, as well as some of the other stuff that's going on right around there, like the ball arena for the Nuggets and Avalanche, Meow Wolf, which is this really cool, just very different thing to check out. If you guys don't know what Meow Wolf is, I'm going to put a little link down below for that too, because it's definitely worth checking out. But anyways, Lower Highlands just has a ton going for it. It's always been one of these areas that's very expensive. A lot of demand to be in that area. And I think that's also, or at least a lot of the reason for that, is because of its walkability with these little micro neighborhoods. So that's number 2. Number 3 is going to be downtown Littleton, and that's really close to where I currently live in Grant Ranch, which is in that Littleton area. And the reason I wanted to put downtown Littleton, it's been around for a long time. In fact, it's a historic downtown. but it is always getting better, and there are just so many great spots to check out. A lot of my friends that live a little bit closer to this downtown part of Littleton are within walking distance. For me, if I jump on a bike, I can be there in about 10, maybe 15 minutes. So very, very close for really anybody that's in this Littleton area. It's an area that I didn't really know that much about until I moved over here and just started spending a lot more time. And it is one of my favorite spots. And it's always an area whenever I have people that come out and visit, or I have a lot of people that reach out, maybe hopefully you can do the same here soon, that are interested in the Denver community. And they come out and I take them around for a day, showing them some of my favorite spots that hopefully fit what they're looking for. And this one, downtown Littleton, is always on the top of the list of places that they love, and they always want to just learn more about what options are available for housing and real estate surrounding this area. So that's number 3. And then last but not least, number 4 is going to be Tennyson. So Tennyson is actually in very close proximity to Lower Highlands, or Lohi. That was one of the other neighborhoods I shared. But I wanted to give Tennyson its own, 30 seconds of fame here, because it just keeps getting bigger and it keeps getting better. Tennyson is one of the coolest spots to check out, especially for all times around Halloween. They've got this massive dog pet Halloween kind of a block party where people bring their pets, get them dressed up, and there are just hundreds of dogs, and mostly dogs, in costume with their owners. And just an example of a really strong community feel and just an awesome place to live. What I love about Tennyson is it's close to I-70, which is one of the best ways just to get straight up to the mountains. So if you are a skier, maybe somebody that just wants to get up and enjoy the mountains, hopefully you are wanting to do that. If you are living on the west side of town in places like Tennyson, Wheat Ridge, Lakewood, Arvada, you're just a little bit closer to get up to the hills in comparison to places further north or further east, like maybe Thornton, Aurora, or even in the actual city of Denver. So I think Tennyson has a great location, but also just so many cool spots to check out for walkability in this micro neighborhood that exists there. So definitely check out all 4 of those. And again, if you guys want to learn more about any of these, that free guide that I mentioned, my Locals Guide to Denver, I include all 4 of these in there. So definitely check that out. All right, so now let's just jump into that last and final con or reason why Denver might not be the best. And that's going to be just the traffic, the congestion, and just the uncertainty of when you're going to hit it. And I just wanted to put this one on this list again today because, it's a very generic topic, but I think there's a lot of relevance, especially right now, because there's so much construction going on. I don't know if it's the time of year, right now we're in September, and it's a time where after the busy summer rush, after kids go back to school, I don't know if people just really, a lot of the developers and just the infrastructure of Denver, they really try and just push a little bit more activity before the cold comes in a couple months for the winter. But man, everywhere I'm going right now, I'm getting stuck in traffic. And my girlfriend, when she goes to work in the morning, we live together. When she goes to work in the morning, what usually takes her 25 minutes is taking about 45 or 50. When we go up to my cabin, which is normally a 2-hour drive, it's been taking us sometimes 3 or 3.5 hours. There's just so much construction going on. And there's a double-edged sword here. The positive of this is that the roads are getting improved. It's going to be a lot smoother when it's done and amazing. But when you're in the thick of it and dealing with it, it's not as much fun. So this is something that I really wanted to put on the list today because this is always the case right now. And it's not just going up I-70 to the mountains. It also exists in and around Denver. And it's something that just used to be very predictable. Back in the day when I was, just starting to drive in the 90s, anywhere I was going, as long as I knew the time of day and I knew to avoid certain roads at rush hour, for example, I was pretty much good. I didn't have to worry about traffic or any really bad congestion. Nowadays, I don't care if it's 10 a.m., 2 p.m., or even 7 or 8 o'clock at night, there's still occasions where I'm getting stuck in this traffic. So I think this is just something that's always going to exist. And if this really does bother you, then this might be enough of a reason, maybe not to totally discount and not consider Denver, but I think if you do, make sure that you're very strategic and intentional about what parts of town you want to live in to hopefully avoid being on these congested roads as much as possible. And maybe in one of those more walkable micro neighborhoods that I mentioned earlier, where once you get home for the day, you don't have to get back out in your car and go dealing with the traffic anymore. You can kind of get home, get set, and then just maybe walk to dinner or just take your dog out for a walk from the home itself and not have to get back in a vehicle and go somewhere. So just a few extra little points to think about when it comes to congestion and just how much worse it's getting. if you guys are skiers or just love the mountains, I also just want to point out that I-70 has a lot of improvements happening right now. And because we're in the thick of it with these improvements happening, the construction traffic is exceptionally bad. But in a couple years when it's done, a lot of the congestion on the ski traffic, hopefully that will be somewhat eliminated or at least significantly minimized moving forward. So, right now on a really busy weekend, you might spend 3.5, 4 hours getting up to some of the ski areas. And hopefully after some of these major improvements they're doing where they're expanding to an additional lane, stuff like that, once that all finishes up and is completely done, I do think that it's going to be a long run positive and pro, just because you'll be able to get up to where you're going much quicker. All right, so with that, I'm going to close this one out. I hope you guys got some value. I tried to hit this pretty quick just to give you as much value as I could in as short of amount of time as possible. So hopefully I didn't speak too fast, information from a fire hose. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I look forward to sharing a brand new episode with you next week on living in Denver. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Reach out if you need anything. I'll see you later. Bye.